The law of abundance. Why God wants you prosperous. Emmet Fox. There's a quiet truth that many people overlook their entire lives. A truth that can completely change the way you experience money, health, love, and happiness. It's the truth that God never intended you to struggle, to live in fear, or to scrape by in lack. The universe was created in perfect order, overflowing with abundance. Look around you. The endless stars, the oceans that never run dry, the trees producing fruit season after season. There is no shortage in God's creation. If you're a child of this same Creator, why would your life be any different? Emmet Fox, one of the great spiritual teachers of the 20th century, explained that poverty is not a divine plan. It's a misunderstanding of spiritual law. He taught that God is your unfailing source of supply, and the moment you align with this truth, everything in your life begins to change. You start to see that money is not just paper. Opportunities are not limited, and blessings are not reserved for a select few. Instead, you realize that there's a law of abundance, a spiritual principle that says all the good you could ever need already exists, waiting for you to receive it. So why do so many people struggle? Because they're trapped in poverty thinking, believing they're separate from the source of all good. Fox wrote that when you fill your mind with fear, resentment, guilt, or self-doubt, you're blocking the divine flow. But when you change your thoughts, when you choose faith over fear, gratitude over worry, love over resentment, you open the invisible doors of supply. This series will take you step by step through the same spiritual principles that have set countless people free. You'll learn why faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. You'll discover how forgiveness clears the way for financial blessings. You'll see why love is the highest vibration for attracting good. And you'll understand why God actually wants you to prosper. Because when you thrive, you become a living example of divine life expressing fully. This is not about selfishly hoarding wealth. It's about living as you were meant to live. Healthy, peaceful, creative, generous, and free. Prosperity is not just money. It's a whole way of being. It includes happiness, good relationships, meaningful work, and yes, the resources to live without fear. As we journey through these teachings together, let them awaken that deep knowing within you. The part of you that already senses you were created for more. You don't have to force blessings. You don't have to chase or beg. You only need to align with the spiritual laws that have been working since the beginning of time. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's beautiful to know the energy we're all connecting in right now. Now, let's begin exploring why abundance is your divine right and how you can live it every single day. 1. Understanding abundance as a spiritual law. Abundance is not man-made. It is rooted in divine law. Why God, as infinite supply, cannot be limited. Emmet Fox's view. Poverty is a false belief, not a divine condition. Abundance is far more than the possessions you own or the money you earn. It is a universal truth woven into the very fabric of existence. It is not created by human effort, nor is it controlled by man-made systems of economy, politics, or hierarchy. Abundance is a spiritual law, an eternal principle that flows directly from the nature of God. Emmet Fox, a visionary spiritual teacher, emphasized this deeply. He taught that poverty is not a natural condition created by God. Rather, it is a false belief born from limited thinking, misunderstanding, and fear. When you really pause to consider the world around you, you can see the evidence of abundance everywhere. Look at nature. A single tree produces thousands of seeds in its lifetime. Oceans hold an immeasurable supply of water. The sun radiates light every single day, never asking for anything in return. Life itself constantly renews, multiplies, and expands. This is not an accident. This is divine law in action. The Creator is infinite supply, and because you are part of that creation, you are meant to reflect that same abundance in your own life. Emmet Fox wrote about this principle with clarity and simplicity. He said that God cannot contradict his own nature. If God is infinite love, infinite wisdom, and infinite supply, then lack cannot come from him. It cannot be his will that anyone should live in misery, hunger, or fear of not having enough. Those conditions come from human misunderstanding of spiritual law. Poverty, in Fox's view, is simply a belief in separation from God's infinite source. It is not real in the ultimate sense. It is an illusion we sustain by focusing on limitation. This teaching may challenge everything you've been taught since childhood. Many people grow up hearing that money is scarce, opportunities are limited, and that wanting more is somehow selfish or wrong. Society conditions us to think in terms of competition. If someone else has more, you must have less. But this is not how divine law operates. Fox explained that God's supply is endless. When you receive more, you don't take away from anyone else. In fact, true abundance benefits everyone because it multiplies. Think about the creative nature of life. When someone writes a beautiful song, does it reduce the possibility of more music being created? Of course not. When someone builds a successful business, does it destroy all other opportunities? No. It often creates more jobs, more services, and more circulation of resources. This is the law of abundance in motion. The more you align yourself with the idea of infinite supply, the more your life expands in ways you couldn't have imagined. Fox would often remind his students that their outer life is always a reflection of their inner life. If your thoughts are filled with fear, doubt, and resentment, you are unconsciously blocking the flow of good that is already available to you. It's like closing the curtains in a bright room. The sunlight is still there, but you're choosing not to let it in. On the other hand, when you begin to affirm and truly believe that God is your unlimited source, you open the windows of your mind. The light begins to pour in, and opportunities start showing up. So how do you begin to understand abundance as a spiritual law rather than a random occurrence? It starts with shifting your perspective. Instead of seeing God as distant or withholding, recognize Him as the infinite supply that sustains all life. Instead of looking at your circumstances and saying, there isn't enough, begin to say, there is always more than enough in the divine source, and I am connected to it. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about acknowledging a higher reality that transcends temporary appearances. Fox often used simple affirmations to help his students align with this truth. One of his most powerful reminders was, there is no limit to the supply of God. There is no lack in the universe. Say that slowly to yourself. Feel what it means. If there is no lack in God's universe, then any experience of lack is only a temporary misalignment. When you correct your thoughts and remember your oneness with divine supply, the outer situation must shift to reflect that. Another key point Fox made is that abundance is not just about material wealth. True abundance includes peace of mind, health, joy, loving relationships, and meaningful work. It is a state of wholeness. You can be financially rich but spiritually poor if you live in constant fear of losing what you have. And you can be financially modest yet truly abundant if you live in trust, gratitude, and openness to life. The spiritual law of abundance covers every aspect of your being, not just your bank account. One of Fox's most inspiring teachings is that you don't have to beg God for abundance because it is already yours by divine inheritance. Just as you don't beg the sun to shine, it shines because that's its nature. God's nature is to give. Your role is simply to remove the mental and emotional barriers that keep you from receiving. These barriers often take the form of old beliefs, fears, or feelings of unworthiness. The moment you release them, the flow resumes. Let's reflect on this for a moment. If abundance is rooted in divine law, then it doesn't depend on the economy, on your job title, or on what other people say or do. It comes directly from the source of all life. When you grasp this truth, you stop feeling like a victim of circumstances. You stop believing that you must fight, compete, or manipulate to get ahead. Instead, you start living in trust. You act with faith, knowing that the supply is infinite and your connection to it cannot be broken. So I invite you to think about your own life. Are there areas where you've believed in lack more than in God's abundance? Are there times you've accepted limitation as if it were permanent truth? Let this be a gentle reminder that those conditions are not from the divine. They are from human misunderstanding. You have the power, through your thoughts and beliefs, to realign with the spiritual law of abundance. Before we move forward, I'd love to know from where you're tuning in and what time is right now. We're curious to feel the collective energy of everyone joining this moment from different parts of the world. As we continue, keep this truth close to your heart. Abundance is not man-made. It is the natural expression of God, and because you are part of Him, it is your natural state too. When you realize this, everything begins to change. 2. God is infinite source. Seeing God as the limitless supply behind all visible forms. Why lack does not exist in the divine realm. How aligning with source shifts your experience of prosperity. When you begin to understand God, not as a distant force or an external being, but as the very source of life, creation, and supply, something profound shifts in your consciousness. Everything around you, nature, relationships, ideas, money, opportunity, is a form through which this source expresses. But behind every visible effect is the invisible cause. That cause is God, and that cause is infinite. Emmet Fox often taught that the spiritual life isn't about pleading with God for supply, but about aligning yourself with the divine nature of abundance that already exists. God is not withholding anything. In fact, God by nature cannot lack. Just as the ocean never runs out of waves, the divine never runs out of ideas, love, wisdom, or supply. Lack does not exist in God. It only appears where human thought disconnects from that truth. To recognize God as infinite source is to see him as the wellspring of every good thing in life. Whether you call it spirit, universe, or simply the divine, this presence flows with unlimited potential. It's not confined to bank accounts, jobs, or markets. Those are merely channels, not the source itself. And the moment you confuse the channel for the source, you fall into fear. When people say things like, I lost my job, or my business failed, so now I have nothing, what they're really doing is identifying their source as something outside themselves. But your job was just one river through which the infinite ocean of God's supply reached you. That river may dry up, but the ocean never runs out of water. The supply remains. You only need to open yourself to new channels. Emmet Fox wrote, "The great law of prosperity is that whatever you focus your attention upon increases. When you focus on the source rather than the form, you stay connected to the infinite. When you focus on the loss, the fear, the shrinking, you create more of that. The spiritual discipline, then, is to constantly return your attention to the truth that your supply is divine, unseen, unlimited, eternal. Think about the sun for a moment. It radiates light constantly. It doesn't ask who deserves its rays. It doesn't evaluate your past or keep score. It simply shines, and those who step into the sunlight feel its warmth. But if you go into the basement or cover your windows, the sun doesn't stop shining. You've just chosen not to receive it. In the same way, God's abundance is always flowing. The question is, are you open to receive? So how do we align with Source? How do we go from struggling to trusting? From fear to flow? It begins with a shift in perception. Instead of looking to outer conditions, we must train ourselves to look within. The first step is acknowledgement. Say to yourself every day, God is my source. Not people, not companies, not even my talents. God is the source, and everything else is a channel. Next is trust. Just as a child trusts their parent to provide without needing to understand how the money comes in or how groceries appear on the table, we are invited to trust that the divine knows how to take care of its creation. The problem isn't that God doesn't provide. The problem is that we often don't allow the provision in. We block it with doubt, with anxiety, with unworthiness. But remember, a closed hand cannot receive. If you're gripping tightly to your fears, there's no space for blessings to land. That's why alignment with Source is not passive. It's an active spiritual practice of letting go of resistance. Emmet Fox reminded his readers, you must think prosperity, see prosperity, feel prosperity, believe prosperity. This isn't just positive thinking, it's spiritual clarity. It's aligning your inner state with the truth of abundance so that your outer life can reflect it. Think of a tuning fork. When struck, it vibrates at a specific frequency. If another tuning fork is nearby and attuned to the same pitch, it begins to vibrate too. That's resonance. You don't have to make the second fork move. It moves because it's aligned. In the same way, when you align your mind and heart with the truth of divine abundance, your life begins to resonate with prosperity. New opportunities come. Support shows up. Solutions appear. Not by force, but by flow. This is why prayer or affirmation is so powerful. Not to ask for what you lack, but to affirm what already is. When you declare, God is my source and supply, you are not trying to convince the universe. You are training your own mind to see what's already true. It may seem hard at first, especially if your current situation is difficult. The bills are piling up, or fear has crept into your chest. But this is precisely when you must anchor deeper into truth. The storm outside might rage, but your faith is the calm center. The supply doesn't disappear just because the bank balance is low. It only appears that way when you rely on appearances instead of spiritual law. Fox would often say that divine law cannot fail, is not inconsistent or conditional. The supply is always moving toward you. The only question is whether you're open to receive. And you open that channel through thought, through gratitude, through trust, and through service. Here's something else to consider. Because God is infinite, the abundance flowing to you does not come at the expense of someone else. This is not a zero-sum game. One person's prosperity does not reduce your own. In fact, the more you bless others' success, the more you align with the source that makes success possible. So today, let this be your reminder. You are not dependent on the world. You are connected to the infinite supply of life itself. You are not separate from it. You don't have to earn it. You don't even have to fully understand it. You simply have to trust and align. 3. Poverty thinking versus prosperity thinking. Why poverty is a mental state, not an external fact. Emmet Fox's statement. You cannot be truly prosperous while thinking of lack. How to recondition the mind for wealth consciousness. Let's talk about something deeply misunderstood. The difference between poverty thinking and prosperity thinking. Many believe poverty is purely external. a lack of money, resources, or opportunity. But Emmet Fox made it clear that poverty is, first and foremost, a mental state. It begins in the unseen realm of thought before it ever manifests as empty pockets or unpaid bills. He said, "You cannot be truly prosperous while thinking of lack." Those words carry an incredible truth. Your outer world mirrors your inner world. When the mind is full of limitation, fear, and worry, it cannot open the door to abundance. So how does this happen? How does a mental state of lack develop? It often begins in childhood. We inherit beliefs about money from our families, culture, or religion. Perhaps you heard phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are selfish, or even we're just not the kind of people who get ahead. These ideas plant themselves like seeds in the subconscious mind. Over time, they grow into patterns of fear, guilt, or resistance whenever money is mentioned. And without even realizing it, you create a vibrational wall between yourself and the prosperity that is your divine right. On the other hand, prosperity thinking is expansive. It doesn't deny reality, but it chooses to see beyond it. Prosperity thinking knows that even if the current situation seems limited, there is always a higher source of supply. It is rooted in faith, not fear. It is guided by the belief that life is abundant, generous, and full of opportunity. Emmet Fox taught that prosperity thinking doesn't mean ignoring difficulties. It means refusing to identify with them as permanent. It sees every problem as temporary and every challenge as an invitation to align more deeply with divine supply. Let's look at this practically. Imagine two people in the same situation. They both lose their job unexpectedly. The first person falls into poverty thinking, "I'll never find work again. The economy is bad. I'm finished." Their energy contracts. They become desperate, doubtful, and fearful. Because their mind is locked on lack, they can't see the creative solutions, the new opportunities, or the doors that are quietly opening. The second person, however, chooses prosperity thinking. This is a temporary change. There is something better coming. I am guided to the right opportunity. Their energy stays open and expectant. They continue to act with faith. And because they stay aligned with the idea of abundance, new doors appear, sometimes faster than they imagined. What made the difference? Not the external event. It was the inner state. The mindset you choose shapes the outcome. So how do we recondition the mind from poverty thinking to prosperity thinking? First, become aware of your thoughts. Most of the time, these patterns run automatically. Listen to the way you speak about money. Do you often say things like, "I can't afford it," or "there's never enough"? Words reveal what's going on in your mind. When you catch yourself speaking from lack, pause and redirect it. Second, surround yourself with ideas of abundance. Emmet Fox recommended reading and meditating on spiritual truths daily because they act as a cleansing stream for the mind. Just as a dark room disappears when you bring in light, poverty thoughts dissolve when you consistently feed your mind with higher ideas. Affirmations like, "I live in a universe of infinite abundance," or "God is my unfailing supply," begin to create new grooves in your subconscious. Third, practice gratitude. Gratitude instantly shifts you from lack to abundance because it focuses on what is present rather than what's missing. When you give thanks, even for small things, you open the flow for more to enter. Remember, the universe responds to your dominant vibration. Gratitude is the vibration of abundance. Fourth, visualize prosperity. Fox often spoke about the power of mental images. If you constantly imagine lack, you reinforce it. But if you imagine yourself healthy, wealthy, and fulfilled, you give your subconscious a new pattern to follow. The mind doesn't distinguish much between what is vividly imagined and what is real, so give it something powerful to work with. Finally, bless others. This might seem counterintuitive when you're struggling, but when you bless the prosperity of others, you dissolve envy and competition. You affirm the truth that there is enough for everyone. What you send out energetically always returns. When you radiate thoughts of abundance, you magnetize it back into your own life. Poverty thinking is like looking through a narrow keyhole. You can only see limitation. Prosperity thinking is like opening the door wide to the sunlight. It lets in the bigger picture. And once you truly shift your mental state, the outer conditions must eventually rearrange themselves to match it. This is not just theory. It's a spiritual law. Emmet Fox reminded us, you are not limited by the things around you. You are only limited by your own belief in limitation. When you replace those beliefs with truth, the very same world begins to feel entirely different. Opportunities you never noticed before will suddenly appear. Ideas will come. Support will flow. It all begins with your thoughts. So today, take a moment to examine your mindset. Are you secretly holding on to scarcity beliefs? Are you replaying stories of limitation in your mind? Decide now to replace them with thoughts of faith, gratitude, and abundance. Begin with one simple affirmation and repeat it often. Divine abundance is mine, here and now. I think prosperity. I feel prosperity. I radiate prosperity. And if this message is helping you shift your thinking, support this journey of spreading truth. Subscribe to our channel right now so you don't miss the next step in this powerful series. Together, we'll keep aligning with the higher laws that were always meant to set us free. 4. The principle of divine right supply. Why you have a spiritual right to abundance. What divine right supply means in Emmet Fox's writings. Why it is not selfish to claim prosperity for yourself. The principle of divine right supply is one of the most liberating truths you can ever embrace. Emmet Fox often reminded people that abundance is not a privilege for a select few. It is a spiritual birthright. When he spoke of divine right supply, he meant the endless flow of good that is already present in the universe, waiting to be recognized and claimed. It is not something you need to beg for, compete for, or manipulate to receive. It already exists because God, as infinite source, is always in a state of giving. This idea challenges the common belief that resources are limited, that money is scarce, or that wealth must be earned through struggle and sacrifice. Fox taught that lack is never part of the divine plan. God, being infinite intelligence and love, does not create shortage. If we see poverty, it is not coming from the mind of God. It is the result of human misunderstanding and fear. He explained that when you align your thinking with truth, the supply you need, whether it is money, opportunity, health, or ideas, flows naturally and without strain. So what exactly does divine right mean in this context? It means rightful, lawful, and aligned with the higher order of the universe. Just as you have a right to breathe air, to experience sunlight, and to live freely, you have the right to prosper. It is not an accident or an indulgence. It is part of fulfilling your purpose. Fox emphasized that you cannot fully express your potential if you're constantly bound by worry about basic needs. Abundance gives you the freedom to grow, to serve others, and to live as the best version of yourself. Many people feel a quiet guilt when they desire more money, more success, more happiness. They wonder if wanting more is selfish. But Fox turned that idea upside down. He taught that it is actually selfless to claim your divine right supply because it allows you to become a greater channel of good for the world. When you are prosperous, you have more to give. When your needs are met, you can turn your attention outward and help others. When you are financially and spiritually free, you inspire others to realize they can be free too. Think about it this way. A candle that is burning brightly does not take light from others. It helps ignite more candles. Prosperity works the same way. When you claim your divine right supply, you do not reduce what is available to others. The universe is not a pie with limited slices. It is an ever-expanding field of energy. As you prosper, you actually contribute to the overall flow of good. Fox explained that the reason so many people struggle is because they do not know how to claim what is already theirs. They see themselves as separate from the divine source. They believe they must fight, earn, or manipulate in order to survive. But divine right supply operates on a completely different level. It responds not to force, but to faith. It answers not to fear, but to trust. When you calmly and confidently affirm that God is your source, the channels of supply open in ways you may never have imagined. So how do you begin to align with this principle? First, recognize that all true supply is spiritual. Money, jobs, opportunities, and material resources are only outer symbols of the deeper spiritual energy. When you treat them as the ultimate source, you block the flow. When you keep your focus on the infinite source behind them, the outer forms naturally appear. Fox would often say, turn away from the problem and think of God. When you do this, you shift your attention from limitation to the limitless. Second, affirm your divine right. Simple statements like, I am in tune with my divine right supply, or God is my unfailing source, are powerful because they remind your subconscious that you are not alone, not unsupported, not limited. They replace worry with certainty. Over time, these affirmations create a new inner pattern, and your outer world begins to mirror it. Third, act as though you trust the supply. This doesn't mean being reckless, but it does mean making choices from faith rather than fear. If you're constantly holding back, hoarding, or refusing to move forward because of fear of lack, you're signaling to the universe that you don't believe in its abundance. But when you take a step in faith, whether it's investing in your growth, helping someone else, or saying yes to a new opportunity, you demonstrate your trust in divine right supply, and the universe responds. Fourth, release resentment and comparison. Fox warned that jealousy or bitterness about someone else's prosperity closes the flow of your own. If you believe there's not enough for everyone, you are thinking in limitation. Instead, bless the prosperity you see in others. When you bless it, you align yourself with it. You acknowledge the truth that there is more than enough to go around. Finally, practice gratitude. Gratitude is a key that unlocks the flow of divine right supply. When you give thanks for what you have, even before more appears, you show that you trust the law. You create a vibration of receptivity. Fox reminded his readers that the universe responds to the spirit in which you live. A grateful spirit is magnetic to blessings. The beauty of this principle is that it removes all fear about the future. If your supply comes only from a job, an economy, or another person, you will always feel insecure because those things can change. But when your supply comes from God, the infinite source that cannot run out, you live in a state of calm assurance. Outer channels may change, but the source is constant. Emmet Fox summed it up beautifully when he said, "Your supply is infinite, inexhaustible, and ever-present. It is your divine right to claim it and express it." When you really take those words into your heart, you stop struggling. You stop feeling unworthy. You stop postponing your good. You begin to live from a deeper knowing that everything you truly need is already on its way. Because in truth, it already exists in the unseen. As you sit with this teaching, let it sink in. You're not meant to scrape by in life. You're not meant to live in constant fear. You are designed to live in abundance, because that abundance allows you to become who you were created to be. Claiming your divine right supply is not selfish. It is your sacred responsibility. And when you do, you not only bless yourself, you bless everyone whose life you touch. 5. The role of faith in manifesting abundance. Why faith is the bridge between the invisible and visible. How to strengthen your faith in God as unfailing supply. Emmet Fox's practical exercises for building trust in divine abundance. Faith is one of the most powerful spiritual forces you can develop. And when it comes to manifesting abundance, it serves as the bridge between what you cannot yet see and what you desire to experience in your life. Emmet Fox repeatedly emphasized that everything begins in the unseen. Before wealth appears in your bank account, before opportunities show up in your daily life, they exist first as ideas, possibilities, and spiritual realities. Faith is the key that connects that invisible potential with visible results. Fox described faith as an inner knowing, a calm confidence that what you need is already present in the divine realm and simply awaiting your recognition. It's not blind optimism or wishful thinking. True faith is a spiritual law in action. He explained that when you hold faith in your heart, you're not trying to convince God to give you something. You're aligning yourself with the fact that God has already provided. In his words, the universe is abundant, and there is no shortage in God's plan. Faith is your ability to accept this truth without resistance. Why is faith so essential for manifesting abundance? Because your outer life always reflects your inner state. If your mind is filled with doubt, fear, or constant worry, you're cutting yourself off from the flow of divine supply. You may be praying for more money, more opportunities, or more peace, but if deep down you do not believe it's possible for you, the law of life cannot bring it forth. Faith dissolves that inner resistance. It opens the door so that what is already yours in the unseen can move into your experience. Fox often gave practical examples of how people block their good through lack of faith. He told stories of individuals who prayed for help but then immediately worried about how it would happen. They said affirmations of abundance, but continued to speak words of fear. He explained that this double-mindedness is like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's growing. Faith, on the other hand, plants the seed and allows it to grow in its own divine timing. So how do you strengthen your faith in God as the unfailing source of supply? The first step is to understand who and what God truly is. Fox reminded his readers that God is not a distant being handing out blessings selectively. God is infinite life, intelligence, and love, constantly seeking to express more of itself through you. When you see God as the limitless source of all good, your fear of lack begins to fade. You realize that no job, no economy, no person is your true source. They are merely channels. The source is always God, and God cannot run out. The second step is to consciously shift your attention from appearances to spiritual truth. Fox said, "Never judge by appearances." If your bank account looks empty or your opportunities seem limited, do not allow that to define your reality. Instead, affirm the higher truth that abundance is already present in the spiritual realm. Say to yourself, "This is only a temporary condition. The divine supply is already here, and it is now manifesting for me in perfect ways." By doing this, you train your mind to see beyond temporary facts and stay connected to eternal truth. The third step is to use faith-filled affirmations. Fox gave many examples of simple yet powerful statements that help build trust in divine abundance. For example, God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. I do not depend on people or circumstances. I depend on God within me. There is no lack in God's universe. Therefore, there can be no lack in my life. Repeating these statements with feeling and consistency begins to recondition your subconscious mind. Over time, you naturally feel more secure, more peaceful, and more open to receiving. Another exercise Fox often recommended was visualization combined with faith. He encouraged people to quietly picture themselves already living in the abundance they desired, not as a fantasy, but as a present spiritual reality. For example, if you needed a new home, he would tell you to imagine yourself walking through that home, feeling the gratitude and joy of it, while affirming, "This or something better is now manifesting for me through divine order." Visualization, when coupled with faith, acts as a magnet for the unseen supply to take form. Fox also stressed the importance of acting in faith. He believed that faith is not passive. It must be expressed in your daily choices. If you're truly trusting in God as your source, you will stop hoarding out of fear. You will give freely, even if it's a small amount. You will take steps toward your goals, even if you can't yet see the entire path. Acting in faith creates momentum. It tells the universe, "I am ready and willing to receive." It's also important to guard your words and thoughts. When you are building faith, avoid speaking about lack, complaining about what you don't have, or filling your mind with negativity. Every time you talk about how bad things are, you reinforce that reality. But every time you speak words of trust, you strengthen your faith and invite abundance. Fox's advice was simple but profound. Speak only of what you want to see manifest. Faith also requires patience. One of the greatest mistakes people make is giving up too soon. They affirm for a few days, they pray for a short while, and when nothing seems to happen immediately, they fall back into worry. Fox explained that just like seeds take time to grow, spiritual seeds also need time to develop. He encouraged people to hold their faith steady, even if the outer signs were slow to appear. "When you are ready, your good is ready," he wrote. Sometimes what looks like a delay is actually divine timing preparing something even better than what you imagined. Finally, Fox taught that gratitude is the natural companion of faith. When you give thanks in advance, even before the blessing appears, you're showing the universe that you trust the process. Gratitude shifts your vibration into a state of already having. Instead of praying from a place of "I need," you begin to live from a place of "I know it's already given." That subtle but powerful shift unlocks doors you didn't even know existed. So when you think about faith, remember this. It is not about forcing yourself to believe in something unrealistic. It is about aligning your mind with the eternal truth that God's abundance is here, now, and always. Faith bridges the gap between the invisible and the visible. It transforms fear into confidence, doubt into certainty, and waiting into receiving. Emmet Fox summed it up perfectly. Faith is the link between you and the inexhaustible supply of the universe. It is the key to every door. When you nurture that faith every day, through your thoughts, your words, your actions, you open yourself to a flow of good that never ends. 6. Abundance as a natural expression of life. Why nature itself proves the law of increase. The lesson of limitless creation in plants, stars, and oceans. How to see yourself as part of this endless expansion. Abundance is not a man-made concept. It is woven into the very fabric of life itself. If you take even a moment to truly observe nature, you will see the law of increase everywhere. Look at how a single seed becomes a towering tree, producing thousands of new seeds over its lifetime. Watch the oceans, where waves never cease, constantly renewing and replenishing themselves. Look at the stars scattered across the night sky. They're uncountable, endlessly multiplying in a universe that continues to expand. Everywhere you look, creation reveals one eternal message. Life is abundant. This truth is what Emmet Fox and many spiritual teachers have pointed to when they talk about the natural expression of abundance. God, as the source of all life, cannot create in limitation because limitation is not part of divine nature. God is infinite intelligence, infinite love, infinite supply. Therefore, everything that flows from God carries the same quality of limitless expansion. Scarcity is not found in the divine plan. It only exists in human thinking when we cut ourselves off from that universal truth. Consider the lesson of the plants. A single apple seed, if nurtured properly, grows into a tree that produces hundreds of apples year after year. Each of those apples carries more seeds, each capable of becoming another tree. If you really think about it, a single seed contains the potential for an entire orchard maybe even thousands of orchards over time. Does the apple tree worry about whether it will have enough to produce next season? No, it simply expresses what it was created to express: life, growth, and fruitfulness. The same can be said about the ocean. No matter how much water is taken from it, it never seems to run dry. It rains, it evaporates, it flows through rivers and returns again. The water cycle is a perfect example of divine circulation, always giving and receiving, always maintaining its fullness. The more it gives, the more it replenishes itself. That is the law of increase in action. Now, look at the stars. Astronomers have discovered that the universe is not static, it is constantly expanding. Galaxies are moving farther apart, and new stars are being born all the time. Creation has no endpoint. It is an infinite unfolding of more life, more energy, more beauty. This limitless expansion is the nature of God expressing through the universe. So what does all this have to do with you? Everything, because you are a part of this same life force. You are not separate from the ocean, the stars, or the trees. The same intelligence that created them also created you. You are an expression of divine life, which means you are meant to grow, expand, and flourish endlessly. To believe in limitation is to deny your true nature. Emmet Fox wrote, "Life is for expression. Life is for expansion. To limit yourself is to misunderstand your own being. Just as the tree fulfills its purpose by growing and bearing fruit, you fulfill your purpose by expanding into your highest potential, mentally, spiritually, and materially. You're not meant to shrink, to live in fear of lack, or to deny yourself the fullness of life. You're meant to thrive. When you look at nature, you see that it does not struggle to create abundance. The rose does not force itself to bloom. It simply unfolds naturally because that is its nature. The bird does not hoard seeds in fear that there will be no more tomorrow. It trusts the rhythm of life. Yet human beings often live in worry, holding tightly to what little they have, fearing that more will not come. In doing so, they cut themselves off from the very flow that would sustain them. So how can you reconnect with this natural expression of abundance? First, you must change the way you see yourself. Stop thinking of yourself as separate from the divine source. You're not an outsider trying to beg for scraps from a reluctant universe. You are part of the same life that produces endless forests, infinite stars, and vast oceans. That means you're also designed for increase. Affirm this truth often. I am part of God's infinite life. I am meant to grow, flourish, and expand. Second, take time to observe nature consciously. Spend a few quiet moments looking at the way life multiplies effortlessly. Let it remind you that increase is the natural order of things. When you align your thoughts with what is natural, you begin to release the unnatural fears of scarcity that the world teaches. Third, trust the process of growth. Just as the seed takes time to become a tree, your abundance may unfold gradually. Do not lose faith just because you cannot see the full result immediately. Know that once you plant the seed of abundance thinking, life itself supports its growth. Fourth, practice circulation in your own life. Nature teaches us that holding on too tightly disrupts the flow. The ocean replenishes itself by giving and receiving. The tree keeps growing by releasing its fruit and seeds. You too must allow your blessings to flow. Share, give, release old things you no longer need, and watch how life fills the space with something greater. Finally, remember that abundance is not just about money. It is about fullness in every area: love, health, creativity, wisdom, and joy. When you align with the law of increase, you notice that your relationships improve, your ideas expand, your energy multiplies. True prosperity touches every part of your life. Emmet Fox often reminded his readers that God's will for you is expansion. The will of God for you is life, and still more life, he wrote. That is why you feel a natural longing for more. It is not greed, it is the divine urge within you to grow. When you see a child wanting to learn more, to explore more, to do more, you recognize that is healthy and natural. The same applies to you, no matter your age. Wanting more life is simply your spirit seeking fuller expression. So the next time you feel tempted to believe in limitation, look again at the world around you. Look at the countless grains of sand on the beach. Look at the millions of leaves on a single tree. Look at the endless waves that keep coming, never stopping. Life is abundant because God is abundant. You are not meant to be the one exception. You are part of this endless, generous, ever-expanding universe. When you embrace this truth, you stop forcing, you stop struggling, and you start flowing with the natural rhythm of life. Just like the seed that becomes a forest, you allow yourself to expand without resistance. And in that alignment, you find that everything you need is already present, already given, already waiting to express through you. 7. Clearing mental blocks to prosperity. Identifying hidden guilt, fear, or unworthiness about money. How Emmet Fox taught forgiveness as a prosperity key. Simple affirmations to dissolve mental resistance. Many people struggle with prosperity not because the universe withholds it, but because their own inner beliefs create invisible walls that keep abundance away. Emmet Fox often emphasized that the real barriers to wealth, health, and happiness are not external circumstances, but mental conditions like guilt, fear, or feelings of unworthiness. These hidden patterns operate beneath the surface, quietly shaping your life without you even realizing it. Let's begin with guilt. Guilt is one of the most powerful blocks to prosperity because it creates a subconscious belief that you do not deserve good things. It may be guilt from past mistakes, guilt about decisions you regret, or even inherited guilt from societal or family teachings that told you wanting more is wrong. When guilt sits in the subconscious, it sabotages your efforts to grow. You might consciously affirm abundance, but deep down, you feel unworthy of it. This inner conflict keeps you in a cycle of lack. Fear is another powerful mental block. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of being judged for having more than others. All of these fears hold you in a lower vibration that repels the very prosperity you want. Fear causes you to cling, to play small, to avoid risks that could open doors to greater opportunities. Emmet Fox explained that fear is the opposite of faith, and where fear dominates, faith cannot operate. Since faith is the bridge between the unseen and the seen, fear essentially cuts you off from the flow of divine supply. Then there is unworthiness. Many people have been conditioned to believe that wealth is for other people, but not for them. Perhaps you grew up hearing phrases like, people like us don't get ahead, or money is for the lucky ones. Over time, these ideas root themselves deep within your subconscious, making you feel as though you're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough to receive abundance. Emmet Fox taught that one of the most effective ways to dissolve these inner blocks is through forgiveness, both of yourself and others. Why? Because forgiveness clears old energy. When you hold onto resentment toward others or yourself, you keep your mind stuck in the past, trapped in negative emotions that cloud your connection with divine supply. He said, you must forgive everyone before you can move forward. Forgiveness clears the channel between you and God. Start by forgiving yourself. Acknowledge that you did the best you could with the knowledge and awareness you had at the time. Speak kindly to yourself. I release the past. I forgive myself for any mistakes. I now allow myself to receive all the good God has for me. Next, forgive others. This does not mean you condone their actions, but you release the resentment that keeps you chained to them. As Fox explained, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. The only person hurt by holding a grudge is you. When you let go, you free your own mind to receive blessings. After forgiveness, the next step is to consciously reprogram your thoughts with affirmations that dissolve resistance. Affirmations are like mental medicine. They replace toxic patterns with healing truths. For example, I am worthy of all the good life has to offer. I release all fear and guilt. I am open to divine abundance. I forgive everyone, including myself. I am free, and my good flows to me now. Repeating these daily begins to soften the old mental habits that once blocked you. Over time, your subconscious starts to believe them, and when your inner state shifts, your outer reality must follow. Another practice Emmet Fox recommended is visualization combined with gratitude. Imagine yourself already free from fear, guilt, and unworthiness. See yourself walking with confidence, living joyfully, sharing your blessings freely. As you hold this vision, feel gratitude as if it's already true. Gratitude is a powerful dissolver of resistance because it shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's possible. You can also clear mental blocks through simple daily reflection. Ask yourself, what do I really believe about money? Do I secretly feel it's wrong to want more? Do I feel anxious when I think of wealth? Do I believe I can't have it? Be honest with yourself. Awareness is the first step to transformation. When you uncover a limiting belief, don't fight it with anger or frustration. Instead, acknowledge it gently and replace it with a higher truth. For example, if you notice the thought, I'm not good enough to be rich, respond with I am a child of God, created in His image, and His abundance is my birthright. Clearing mental blocks is not about force, it's about softening. Think of it like cleaning a window. If the glass is covered in dirt, light cannot pass through clearly. But when you gently wipe away the dust, the light that was always there shines through effortlessly. Your mind is that window, and forgiveness, affirmations, and self-awareness are the tools that help it shine clear. Emmet Fox summarized this beautifully. The secret of all true prosperity is to clear out of the mind everything that is not in harmony with God's love. When your thoughts are aligned with love, there is no room for guilt. When your faith is strong, fear disappears. When you see yourself as a divine expression of life, unworthiness fades away. So take a moment to reflect. Are there hidden emotions or old stories about money that might still be blocking your flow? Are there people you need to forgive, including yourself? Are there fears you can replace with faith? As you work gently on clearing these mental blocks, you will notice a shift, not just in your finances, but in your entire life. You will feel lighter, freer, more open to receiving. And when the mind is clear, prosperity flows naturally because there is nothing left to resist it. 8. Gratitude as the magnet for more. Why gratitude aligns you with more blessings. Emmet Fox. You cannot receive more until you appreciate what you have. Daily gratitude practices to multiply good in your life. Gratitude is one of the most transformative spiritual practices you can ever embrace. It may seem simple, even too simple, but it holds a hidden power that shifts your entire consciousness and magnetizes more good into your life. Emmet Fox emphasized this over and over, saying, "You cannot receive more until you appreciate what you have." Why? Because gratitude changes your vibration. It moves you out of the energy of lack and into the energy of abundance. And what you dwell on in thought and feeling always expands. Think about it. When you focus on what's missing, you generate feelings of dissatisfaction, worry, and fear. That energy attracts more of the same because the mind, through the law of vibration, always pulls in experiences that match its dominant state. But the moment you sincerely shift into gratitude, you begin to see life differently. You stop obsessing over what you don't have and start honoring the blessings that are already present. And what happens? Your energy rises. You feel lighter, calmer, more hopeful. In that state, you become open to receive more because the universe responds to the frequency of joy and appreciation. Emmet Fox often reminded his listeners that gratitude is not just polite, it is a spiritual law. He explained that when you thank God for what you already have, even before you see the next blessing, you are affirming your trust in divine abundance. That act of acknowledgement keeps the channel of supply clear. He said, "Thank God for what you have and for what is on its way, because gratitude is the key that unlocks the door to more." Let's break this down into a few powerful truths. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to sufficiency. When you're constantly thinking, "I don't have enough money, I don't have the right opportunities, I don't have support," you are actually training your mind to see only what's missing. But when you pause and say, "I'm thankful for the roof over my head, the food I eat, the breath I'm taking right now, the relationships I do have," you realize that abundance is already present in many forms. That shift alone opens the way for more. Gratitude dissolves fear and worry. When you're truly grateful, even for small things, your nervous system relaxes. Worry loses its grip. Why? Because gratitude brings you into the present moment. It reminds you that right now, you are provided for. From that peaceful state, inspired ideas and solutions can flow. Fear cannot coexist with gratitude. It simply can't hold the same space. Gratitude strengthens your faith. When you thank God for blessings already given, your trust deepens that more is possible. It's like watering a seed. You may not see the sprout yet, but your faith that the seed will grow keeps you nurturing it. Gratitude is that spiritual watering. It says, "I trust that good is unfolding, even if I can't yet see it." So how do you make gratitude a daily magnet for more blessings? Here are some simple but deeply effective practices Emmet Fox would recommend. Morning gratitude reset. Before you even get out of bed, mentally list 5 things you're grateful for. It can be as simple as, "I'm grateful I woke up this morning. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for a new day full of possibilities." This sets the tone for your entire day. Gratitude list at night. Before you sleep, write down or silently recall all the good moments, big or small, that happened that day. Even if it was a tough day, you can still say, "I'm grateful I made it through. I'm grateful for the lessons learned." Ending your day in gratitude helps your subconscious rest in a positive vibration. Gratitude walks. Take a walk, even just for 10 minutes, and during that time, mentally thank everything you see. Thank the sky, the trees, the people you pass, the ground beneath your feet. This helps you connect with life in a deeper, more appreciative way. Thanking in advance. Emmet Fox also taught the power of advanced gratitude. Even before your prayer is answered or your desire manifests, thank God as if it's already done. Say, "I'm so grateful for the abundance already on its way. I know it is here in the unseen, and I give thanks for it now." This demonstrates faith and trust, which speeds the process of manifestation. Gratitude also transforms your relationships and opportunities. When you appreciate people instead of criticizing them, they naturally respond with more kindness. When you value the work you already have, better work finds its way to you. When you respect and care for the money you already have, even if it's a small amount, you create the right vibration for more to come. Fox would often say that gratitude is the spiritual equivalent of keeping the windows of your mind open so the sunlight of God's blessings can pour in. When you close those windows with complaint, resentment, or self-pity, the light can't reach you. But the moment you open them with appreciation, the flow begins again. A simple daily affirmation he suggested goes like this: I'm grateful for all the good in my life, seen and unseen. I bless what I have now, and I give thanks for the greater good already on its way. Imagine if you made gratitude your dominant habit. Imagine training your mind to see what's working rather than obsessing over what's not. Over time, your whole outlook changes and your life mirrors that change. You start noticing small blessings that were always there. Then bigger blessings follow because like attracts like. Gratitude attracts more to be grateful for. It's that simple. Even science supports this spiritual law. Studies in psychology show that people who keep a daily gratitude practice experience more happiness, better health, and even more opportunities because their optimistic mindset opens doors. This aligns perfectly with what Fox taught spiritually decades ago. Gratitude is a universal law that multiplies whatever it touches. So today, take a few minutes to really feel gratitude for something, anything. It could be your breath, your home, a loved one, a lesson learned. Say it silently or aloud. Thank you, God. Do this often and watch how your energy shifts. Watch how doors begin to open. Because the truth is, you are already surrounded by blessings. Gratitude doesn't create them, it reveals them. And once you see them, you'll know without a doubt that more is always on the way. 9. How the law of attraction supports abundance. The vibrational link between your thoughts and your supply. Why what you focus on must expand. How to keep your mind tuned to abundance instead of lack. The law of attraction is one of the most talked about spiritual principles, yet many still misunderstand its depth. At its core, it is not a mysterious or random force. It is a universal law that says your dominant thoughts, emotions, and beliefs set the vibrational tone for your life, and life responds accordingly. Emmet Fox, though he didn't use the modern term law of attraction often, taught the same truth. Your life is what your thoughts make it. He explained that every thought carries an energy frequency, and that frequency connects you with matching experiences. When you think abundance, joy, and faith, you align yourself with circumstances that reflect those states. When you dwell on fear, worry, and lack, you create a magnet for more of the same. The law of attraction is always working. It doesn't take a break. It simply mirrors back the mental and emotional patterns you hold most consistently. Let's explore why this law is so crucial for manifesting abundance. First, your thoughts are creative forces. You may believe thoughts are invisible and harmless, but spiritually speaking, they are very real. They are like seeds planted in the soil of the subconscious mind, and eventually, they must sprout in your external world. Fox would often say, change your thought, and you change your life, emphasizing that nothing in your circumstances can shift permanently without a shift in your thinking. If you constantly say to yourself, I never have enough, then life will confirm that belief with more situations of lack. But if you affirm, God is my source, and supply is limitless, your energy changes, and so does what you draw to yourself. Second, your emotions amplify your vibration. It's not just about repeating positive words. It's about the feeling behind them. If you say, I am wealthy, but deep down you feel fear or disbelief, the underlying vibration is still lack. That is why Fox stressed the importance of faith and joy in prayer. Feeling gratitude, love, or excitement about your desired outcome strengthens the mental image and makes it magnetic. Emotions act like a spiritual amplifier, sending out a stronger signal that the universe responds to. Third, what you focus on must expand. This is a simple but powerful truth. When you keep your mind focused on abundance, even if you're not seeing it yet, you are watering the seed of prosperity. On the other hand, if you obsess over bills, debts, and what's missing, you're watering the seed of lack. The universe does not distinguish between what you want and what you fear. It only responds to the energy you give your attention to. So how can you keep your mind tuned to abundance instead of lack? Here are some practices inspired by Emmet Fox's teachings. Guard your thoughts like a gatekeeper. Whenever you catch yourself thinking about what you don't have, gently shift your focus. Say, I refuse to dwell on lack. I know God's supply is infinite, and I am part of that abundance. Do this repeatedly until it becomes a habit. Visualize abundance as if it's already present. Fox encouraged mental imagery because your mind doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined state and reality. Picture yourself living in peace, having your needs met, giving generously, and feeling secure. Let those images evoke real emotions of gratitude. Surround yourself with abundance-minded influences. What you read, watch, and listen to affects your mental atmosphere. Avoid constant negativity or poverty thinking. Instead, fill your mind with stories, teachings, and affirmations that remind you of the abundance of life. Practice gratitude daily. Gratitude is one of the easiest ways to align with abundance. When you appreciate what you already have, you naturally attract more. Fox said that gratitude keeps the spiritual pipeline clear, allowing supply to flow freely. Affirm the truth of infinite supply. Here's a simple affirmation inspired by Fox. Divine supply is my birthright. I am open and receptive to all the good God has for me. Abundance flows to me easily and in perfect ways. Say it with feeling, not just words. What's important to understand is that the law of attraction does not work in isolation. It's connected to other divine laws like faith, circulation, and forgiveness. For example, if you hold resentment or fear, it can block the flow of good even if you're affirming abundance. That's why Fox always taught a holistic approach. Clear your mind of negative patterns, cultivate gratitude, act with integrity, and trust God's unlimited supply. Nature itself reflects this law. Look at the way seeds planted in fertile soil grow effortlessly. If you plant an apple seed, you won't get oranges, you'll get apples. In the same way, if you plant thoughts of lack, you cannot harvest abundance. But when you plant thoughts of wealth, peace, and love, the harvest will match those seeds. One of Fox's most famous examples was about radio waves. He said that abundance is like a radio frequency always broadcasting, but you must tune your mental receiver to the right station. If you're tuned to the station of fear, you cannot receive the signal of abundance. The frequency of abundance is trust, gratitude, and expectancy. This means abundance is not something you have to force. It is something you align with. The supply is already there. God, as infinite source, is always providing. Your role is to create the right mental and emotional conditions for that supply to manifest. So, start paying attention to what you're feeding your mind daily. Are you rehearsing thoughts of worry? Or are you affirming the truth of divine plenty? Are you focusing on what's missing? Or are you celebrating what's already present? Remember, what you focus on expands. The law of attraction is simply a mirror. It reflects what you hold within. When you consciously choose to think and feel abundance, life cannot help but reflect it back to you in the form of opportunities, ideas, relationships, and resources. 10. Visualization. Seeing prosperity before it appears. Why mental imaging is a creative force. Emmet Fox's simple visualization method. How to picture yourself living in divine plenty. Visualization is one of the most powerful tools for shaping your reality, and Emmet Fox understood this deeply. He believed that the human mind is not just a passive observer of life, but an active creator, a workshop where the seeds of your future are formed. His famous teaching on the power of thought emphasized that everything you see in your external world first existed as an idea, a picture, a mental image within someone's mind. When you visualize, you are engaging the creative force within you that aligns your consciousness with the good you desire. Fox put it simply, your mind is the builder. What you hold in thought eventually appears in your life. This means if you continuously picture lack, struggle, or fear, you reinforce those conditions. But if you hold a consistent, joyful image of abundance and peace, you begin to attract circumstances that match that inner reality. Let's explore why mental imaging is a creative force. The mind does not know the difference between real and vividly imagined experiences. Scientific studies have confirmed what spiritual teachers like Fox taught decades ago. The brain responds to imagined scenarios almost the same way it responds to real ones. If you consistently visualize yourself living in abundance, your subconscious begins to accept it as true. This changes how you think, feel, and act, which naturally draws you into alignment with greater opportunities. Visualization plants seeds in the subconscious. Fox often referred to the subconscious mind as fertile soil. Whatever you plant there through repeated thoughts and images will grow, whether it is positive or negative. By deliberately visualizing prosperity, you are planting seeds of faith, expectancy, and confidence that must eventually manifest as external results. Images bypass resistance that words sometimes create. Sometimes, when you affirm something verbally, a part of your mind doubts it. But mental pictures are powerful because they communicate directly with the deeper, feeling part of you. When you see yourself in a new reality, you feel it, and that feeling becomes magnetic. So how can you use visualization in the way Emmet Fox recommended? Keep it simple and clear. Fox didn't believe in overcomplicating spiritual practice. He advised creating a single, clear mental picture of what you desire. For example, if you want financial freedom, imagine yourself joyfully paying all your obligations with ease, seeing your bank account filled, and feeling calm and secure. Don't overload your mind with too many conflicting images. Focus on one coherent scene. Add emotion to your mental pictures. Visualization is not just about seeing with your inner eye. It's about feeling the joy, peace, and gratitude of already having it. Fox taught that the feeling is the true creative element. You must feel the reality of the good you're visualizing as if it's already yours. Practice regularly. Just as you wouldn't expect a single seed to grow overnight, you shouldn't expect one visualization to transform your life instantly. Fox suggested daily practice, ideally in the morning and evening, because consistency impresses the subconscious mind more deeply. Release the how. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to figure out how their desire will come to pass. Fox emphasized that your role is to hold the vision and trust the divine intelligence to work out the details. You don't need to force the outcome. You only need to maintain the mental image and live as if it's already unfolding. Here's a simple visualization method inspired by Emmet Fox's teachings. Sit quietly in a relaxed state. Close your eyes and breathe deeply to calm your mind. Bring to mind a single clear picture of the abundance you desire. Maybe it's a peaceful home, a thriving career, or financial ease. See yourself in that scene vividly. Imagine the colors, the sounds, even the scents. Make it real in your mind. Most importantly, feel the gratitude and joy of already experiencing it. Smile, breathe it in, and hold that feeling for a few minutes. End by affirming something simple like, "This or something better now manifests for me in perfect ways." Over time, this practice reshapes your inner world. As your inner world shifts, the outer world follows. Fox often used nature as an example. When a seed is planted in the ground, it begins to grow invisibly before you see the sprout. The same is true for visualization. The moment you hold a clear mental picture with faith, the creative process begins. You may not see immediate external results, but under the surface, changes are happening. New ideas will come to you, opportunities will appear, and you'll be drawn toward actions that bring your vision to life. Visualization also helps dissolve the fear of current circumstances. Instead of focusing on what's missing, it allows you to mentally live in the reality of divine abundance, which raises your vibration and keeps you connected to faith rather than worry. Fox believed that this inner shift was far more powerful than struggling to change outer conditions directly. He once said, "The mental picture you hold is your prophecy of what shall be." Think about that for a moment. What pictures are you holding in your mind every day? Are they pictures of worry, struggle, and limitation? Or are they pictures of peace, success, and plenty? Your inner pictures are not idle daydreams. They are blueprints that life must eventually build upon. To picture yourself living in divine plenty, you don't need to imagine luxury beyond reason. You simply need to imagine the feeling of complete sufficiency, freedom, and peace. See yourself living in alignment with God's infinite supply. Picture your needs being met effortlessly, not because you are lucky, but because you're connected to the source of all good. When you practice this regularly, something beautiful happens. Your thoughts begin to shift naturally toward possibility instead of limitation. Your actions align more easily with opportunities. You stop chasing, worrying, or doubting, and you start receiving and allowing. Visualization is not daydreaming. It's a conscious spiritual practice of aligning your mind with divine truth. It's seeing with your inner eye what God has already prepared for you. 11. The role of right action. Abundance is not passive. You must act in alignment. How inspired action creates channels for supply. Why willingness to give value unlocks more opportunities. Abundance is not something that simply drops into your lap without movement. While it begins with thought and alignment, it must also be expressed through right action. Emmet Fox emphasized that spiritual truth is practical. It must translate into how you live, how you serve, and how you engage with the world. He often reminded his students that faith without corresponding action is incomplete. It's like planting seeds, but never watering them. Right action doesn't mean frantic, exhausting effort driven by fear or desperation. It's not about forcing outcomes through struggle. Rather, it is inspired, aligned action that flows naturally from the awareness of divine abundance. When you recognize that God is your source, you stop acting from panic and start acting from clarity and purpose. Why is right action so important? It opens the channels for divine supply to reach you. Fox explained that abundance doesn't always come directly from the place you expect. Instead, it moves through channels, opportunities, ideas, people, and circumstances. However, those channels only open when you are willing to move and take steps in faith. If you sit still waiting for everything to magically appear, you're essentially blocking the flow. Action is the bridge between your inner knowing and outer manifestation. It demonstrates your faith. When you take inspired steps toward your goals, even if you can't see the full path, you are expressing trust in the universe's support. This act of faith activates more opportunities. Fox believed that God meets you halfway, but you must first move in the direction of your good. Think of it like electricity. You have to flip the switch to allow the current to flow. It aligns you with the principle of giving and receiving. Right action is always tied to service and value. When you give value to others through your work, creativity, kindness, or contribution, you naturally become a greater channel for abundance. Fox wrote that the more good you put into circulation, the more comes back to you multiplied. In this sense, abundance is not just about getting. It's about participating in the endless flow of giving and receiving. So what does right action look like in practice? Act on inspired ideas promptly. Sometimes a thought will come to you, an idea for a new business, a call you should make, a skill you should learn. Fox would say that these nudges are divine guidance. Don't dismiss them as random. Take the step. Often, the next step reveals itself only after you move on the first one. Give your best in what you're doing now. Even if you're in a job or situation that feels temporary, approach it with excellence and integrity. When you bring high energy and value into your current work, you prepare the way for greater opportunities. Fox taught that God cannot bless carelessness or resentment, but he multiplies genuine effort given with love and intention. Be willing to serve beyond immediate gain. Right action is rooted in the willingness to serve, not just to receive. This doesn't mean overextending yourself or being taken advantage of. It means looking for ways to contribute meaningfully. Ironically, when you focus on how you can make life better for others, your own life expands naturally. Release fear of imperfection. Many people delay action because they're waiting for the perfect plan. But Fox reminded us that perfection comes through movement, not before it. Take the step you can take now, even if it's small. Each step builds momentum, and momentum attracts more clarity and more resources. Another key element Fox highlighted is the importance of willingness. You don't have to know exactly how everything will unfold. You just have to be willing to follow the guidance that comes to you. This willingness signals to the universe that you are ready to receive, and it opens doors that previously seemed closed. Consider the story of a person who wanted financial freedom but kept waiting for the right time to start a side project. They kept visualizing, affirming, and praying, but they weren't taking any outward steps. When they finally decided to take one simple, small action, creating a basic outline for their idea, it sparked a chain of events that led to new connections and unexpected income. The visualization planted the seed, but the action watered it and allowed it to grow. Fox would often say that abundance is active, not passive. It moves like a current, and you must be willing to step into that current. If you resist action, you're essentially resisting the very flow you're asking for. Right action also has a spiritual quality. It comes from a place of peace, not fear. When you act in fear, you scatter your energy. When you act in faith, your energy becomes focused and magnetic. That's why Fox encouraged prayer and meditation before making decisions. He believed that when you quiet your mind, you can sense the inner guidance that leads you to the best actions. It's also worth noting that right action often benefits more than just you. When you act in alignment with divine abundance, your actions uplift others as well. You create value, you circulate blessings, and you become a channel through which good flows into the world. This is why willingness to give value unlocks even more opportunities, because you're not acting for selfish gain, but from the awareness that all life is interconnected. Right action doesn't have to be dramatic. It might be as simple as organizing your finances, reaching out to someone who can help you grow, improving a skill, or even decluttering your home to make space for new blessings. These small steps may seem ordinary, but they shift your energy and signal that you're ready for more. Fox believed that when you combine right thinking with right action, you become unstoppable. Thought alone begins the creative process, but action completes it. Like a seed needs both soil and water, abundance needs both belief and movement. So, as you align with divine abundance, ask yourself, what step can I take today, however small, that reflects my faith in infinite supply? Don't wait for the entire path to appear. Just act on what you know now. Each step will reveal the next. 12. Circulation, the secret of keeping wealth flowing. Why hoarding or clinging blocks divine flow? Emmet Fox's view, money is like water. It must move. How tithing, giving, and sharing open greater channels. Circulation is one of the most overlooked yet powerful principles of abundance. Emmet Fox described it beautifully when he said that money is like water. It must flow freely or it becomes stagnant. Just as a river brings life to everything it touches because it keeps moving, so does the divine supply in your life. When you allow it to circulate, to come in and go out with faith, you stay connected to the infinite flow. But when you hoard or cling in fear, you block the very channels through which new blessings could enter. Why is this so? Because the universe operates on the law of movement. Everything in creation is in motion. Planets revolve. Seasons change. Tides rise and fall. Life itself expands through circulation. When you inhale, you must exhale. When you give, you make space to receive. If you try to stop the cycle by holding tightly to what you have, you create resistance. You're essentially saying to the universe, I don't trust there will be more. That vibration of fear interrupts the flow of supply. Fox emphasized that prosperity cannot thrive in a closed system. He would often remind his students that clinging is a subtle form of believing in lack. When you hold on too tightly, you're affirming that there may not be enough for the future. This belief attracts limitation rather than abundance. But when you give freely, you are demonstrating faith that your source is not finite. You're declaring that God is infinite and that more is always on its way. Circulation doesn't always mean giving away everything you have. It means allowing resources to move in healthy ways. Here's how it works. Tithing and intentional giving. Fox often spoke of tithing not as a rigid rule, but as a spiritual act that acknowledges God as your source. When you give a portion of what you receive to support good works, you are planting seeds in fertile ground. This giving comes back to you in multiplied ways because you're participating in the divine economy. It's not about the amount. It's about the consciousness with which you give. A small gift given in faith and joy can open greater channels than a large sum given in fear or resentment. Generosity in everyday life. Circulation doesn't have to be limited to money. It includes kindness, time, encouragement, and sharing your talents. When you freely share what you have, you create an energetic opening for more good to flow. Fox believed that generosity keeps you in tune with the principle of expansion. The more you give of yourself, wisely and lovingly, the more life gives back to you. Releasing with trust. Sometimes circulation requires you to let go of things you no longer need. This could be old possessions, outdated habits, or even relationships that no longer serve your highest good. By clearing out what is stagnant, you make room for something greater. Fox would say that nature abhors a vacuum. So when you create space, the universe rushes to fill it. Investing in growth. Circulation also means putting your resources into things that expand your life and the lives of others. It might be learning new skills, improving your environment, or supporting causes that uplift humanity. When you invest rather than hoard, you're aligning with the principle that wealth is meant to grow and serve, not sit idle. Think of how water behaves. When it flows freely, it nourishes, refreshes, and sustains life. But when it sits in one place, blocked and unmoving, it becomes stale and even harmful. Money and resources are the same way. They're meant to move through you, not just to you. When you keep them moving, they stay fresh and abundant. Fox often shared stories of people who shifted their financial situations dramatically simply by practicing circulation. For example, someone in deep financial worry decided to give a small amount to help someone else in need, even though they felt they couldn't afford it. That act of faith broke the energy of fear and opened the door for unexpected income and opportunities. The giving changed their vibration from lack to trust, which attracted new supply. It's important to understand that circulation doesn't mean careless spending or overextending yourself. It's guided by wisdom and love. You give where you feel inspired, where it uplifts and supports growth. True circulation doesn't drain you. It refreshes you. When you give in alignment with divine guidance, you feel expanded, not diminished. The beauty of circulation is that it reminds you of your oneness with the source. You realize you're not the ultimate provider. You are a channel. As long as you keep the channel open, more and more can flow through. When you stop the flow, thinking you must hold on just in case, you cut yourself off from the infinite supply that is always available. So how can you start practicing circulation today? Look for one small way to give, even if it feels symbolic. It could be money, time, or even a kind word. Release something you've been holding onto unnecessarily. Clear a space in your home, your mind, or your heart. Affirm silently before giving. As I give freely, I open the way for greater blessings to return to me. Fox reminded his students that you can never outgive God. The more you circulate, the more the universe fills your cup. Giving with joy creates a magnetic field that draws more good into your life than you can imagine. If you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, ask yourself where you might be holding on too tightly. Are you clinging to money out of fear? Are you resisting change because of insecurity? When you release and circulate, even in a small way, you'll feel the flow begin to move again. Now, if you're finding value in these teachings and you still haven't subscribed to our channel, I warmly invite you to do so right now. And don't forget to like this video. Your support motivates me to create even more inspiring content like this. Let's keep this circulation of wisdom and abundance flowing together. 13. Forgiveness unlocks financial freedom. Why resentment holds back abundance. Emmet Fox. You cannot hold resentment and expect God's blessings. How to release old grudges to create new prosperity. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful yet misunderstood principles of spiritual abundance. Emmet Fox taught that resentment is like a heavy chain wrapped around your heart and mind, blocking the flow of good that God wants to give you. When you hold grudges, anger, or bitterness, you're essentially holding onto the past. And when your energy is tied to the past, it cannot be free to create something new. Fox was very direct about this. You cannot hold resentment and expect God's blessings. Why? Because resentment keeps you out of alignment with the divine nature of love and expansion. It traps you in a lower vibration, one that cannot harmonize with prosperity. Abundance is a natural flow, but unforgiveness acts like a dam that stops it. You may pray for more money, more opportunities, more peace, but if your heart is harboring anger or blame, you're silently pushing away the very blessings you desire. When you resent someone, you're actually giving them power over your life. You're allowing their past actions to influence your present state of mind. Fox often explained that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It doesn't harm them, it harms you. It clouds your thinking, disturbs your peace, and closes the door to fresh possibilities. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is a spiritual key that unlocks new channels of good. It doesn't mean you condone harmful behavior. It doesn't mean you have to reconcile with someone who hurt you. Forgiveness is not about changing the past. It's about releasing its hold on you. It's a choice to stop carrying the weight of anger so you can walk freely into a better future. Fox taught a simple but profound idea. When you forgive, you release the other person and you release yourself. That release creates space for divine energy to move through your life again. It's like clearing away old, stagnant energy so fresh air can enter the room. How does forgiveness connect to financial freedom? Think of it this way. When your mind is occupied with resentment, it's focused on lack. You're mentally replaying what was taken from you, what went wrong, or what you lost. That focus keeps you stuck in the vibration of loss. Forgiveness shifts your attention away from what went wrong and opens you to what can go right. It aligns you with a higher vibration where solutions, ideas, and new supply can reach you. Fox would often guide people through simple forgiveness practices. Here's a method he suggested. Bring the person or situation to mind. Think of the person you've been holding resentment toward. Don't deny your feelings. Acknowledge the hurt, but also recognize that holding it is harming you, not them. Affirm a release. Say quietly, I fully and freely forgive you. I let go of all resentment, all bitterness, and all anger. You are free, and I am free. God's love now heals and blesses us both. Replace resentment with blessing. Fox believed that to truly clear resentment, you must replace it with something positive. You can silently bless the person with peace or wish them genuine healing. By doing this, you lift your own energy into alignment with love, which is the highest attracting force. Forgive yourself too. Many people unknowingly block their prosperity by holding guilt or shame toward themselves. Fox reminded his students that self-condemnation is as harmful as condemning others. To release guilt, you can affirm, I forgive myself. I release all mistakes of the past. God's infinite love renews me now. When you practice forgiveness consistently, something extraordinary happens. You feel lighter. Your mind becomes clearer. New ideas for progress and prosperity begin to surface. You start noticing opportunities that were always there, but hidden by the fog of resentment. There are countless real-life examples of people who experience financial breakthroughs after letting go of resentment. Some saw long-standing debts resolved, new work opportunities appear, or unexpected money arrive. Fox explained that this is not a coincidence. It's a direct result of removing an inner block. When you forgive, you open a new channel for God's abundance to reach you. It's important to remember that forgiveness is a process, not always a one-time event. Some wounds may feel deep, and that's okay. What matters is your willingness. Even if you don't feel ready to forgive fully, start by saying, I am willing to forgive. I want to be free. That small willingness is enough for divine energy to begin working within you. Forgiveness also applies to situations beyond people. Perhaps you feel resentment toward life itself, toward the economy, your upbringing, or missed chances. Maybe you even feel resentment toward God for not answering prayers in the way you expected. Fox encouraged people to forgive life, to release the belief that the universe has been unfair. By doing so, you shift from a victim mentality to one of faith and expectancy. Another hidden form of resentment that often blocks prosperity is envy. When you secretly resent others for their success or wealth, you're pushing away your own blessings. Fox would say, "Bless the good you see in others is proof of what is possible for you too." Instead of envying, bless and give thanks for the abundance you see around you. That attitude aligns you with the same good. So, take a moment to reflect. Who or what do you need to forgive? Is it a person, an experience, or even yourself? Remember that forgiveness is not about changing the past. It's about setting yourself free now. And when you are free, abundance can finally move toward you unhindered. 14. Words of power. Speaking abundance in a life. Why the words you use shape your financial reality. Examples of prosperity affirmations from Emmet Fox. How to stop negative self-talk about money. Words are not just sounds. They carry energy, intention, and creative power. Emmet Fox often reminded his students that the words you repeatedly speak are seeds planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. Over time, those seeds grow into the experiences you see in your life. If your words are filled with lack, fear, and complaint, your reality will reflect that vibration. But if your words align with faith, gratitude, and expectation of good, they create channels for abundance to appear in ways beyond your imagination. Fox put it simply, your word is your wand. Every time you speak, you are directing spiritual energy into form. He explained that the spoken word has a deeper impact than a fleeting thought because it vibrates outward, reinforcing your belief and intention. Think of it like this. Words are instructions you are constantly giving to the universe about what to deliver into your life. This is why casual negative self-talk about money is far more damaging than most people realize. When you say things like, "I can't afford that," "money is hard to come by," or "I'm always broke," you are not just describing your situation, you're reinforcing it. You are affirming lack. And since the subconscious mind doesn't filter or question your words, it simply accepts them as truth and mirrors them back in your experience. Fox urged people to guard their speech carefully, especially regarding finances and prosperity. He suggested replacing habitual negative phrases with uplifting and expansive ones. For example, instead of saying, "I can't afford this," you could say, "I choose to use my money wisely, and more always comes to me." Instead of saying, "There's never enough," affirm, "God's supply is endless, and it flows to me freely." The goal is not to deny reality, but to speak a higher reality into being. Fox explained that you don't have to understand exactly how the supply will come. You simply need to affirm that it will. Your words create a mental blueprint that divine intelligence fills in with form. Here are a few prosperity affirmations inspired by Emmet Fox's teachings that you can start using today. I am rich in divine ideas, and rich results follow. God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly and easily. I am open and receptive to new streams of income. I bless all that I have, and it multiplies for me now. Everything I need flows to me in perfect timing and order. The key is to speak these affirmations with conviction, as if they are already true. You don't beg, plead, or hope. You declare. Fox taught that when you affirm prosperity, you are aligning yourself with what is already spiritually true. The divine source is never lacking. It is only our perception and belief that create the illusion of lack. Another vital part of speaking abundance is learning to bless others with your words. When you speak words of encouragement, gratitude, and goodwill to others, you're creating an energy of expansion that naturally returns to you. Fox encouraged people to silently bless everyone they encounter, especially those who seem more prosperous. Instead of feeling envy or resentment, say quietly, "I bless the good you have, and I claim it for myself as well." By doing this, you are affirming that abundance is available to all and aligning yourself with its flow. Fox also warned against careless complaining, especially about money. He said that every complaint reinforces the very condition you want to escape. If you constantly talk about how bad the economy is, how expensive everything is, or how unfair life feels, you are essentially programming yourself to stay in that reality. He suggested a simple practice. Whenever you feel the urge to complain, pause and replace it with an affirmation of faith, even if it feels small. For example, if you feel tempted to say, "Money is so tight right now," pause and say instead, "Divine supply is at work, and my needs are already met." Your words are not magic spells. They are conscious tools that train your mind to focus on truth instead of appearances. Over time, this mental and verbal discipline rewires your subconscious and shifts your vibration. And when your inner vibration changes, your outer world inevitably rearranges itself to match it. Another powerful exercise Fox recommended is speaking gratitude out loud. Instead of just thinking, "I'm grateful for what I have," say it. Speak it into the atmosphere. Gratitude, spoken aloud, magnifies the feeling and strengthens the vibration of abundance. For example, start your day by saying, "Thank you for the roof over my head. Thank you for the money I already have. Thank you for the opportunities that are on their way." You can also create a simple prosperity decree, a short, powerful statement you repeat daily. Fox often suggested something like, "God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. I am prosperous now." Repeating a decree like this anchors your mind in truth, even when external circumstances are uncertain. The beautiful thing about words of power is that they don't just change your finances, they change your entire life experience. When you consciously choose words of faith, gratitude, and expansion, you'll notice you feel lighter, more hopeful, and more open. And from that higher emotional state, better ideas, people, and opportunities begin to flow to you naturally. So today, start becoming aware of the words you speak about money and abundance. Catch yourself when you're about to say something limiting or negative. Replace it with a declaration of truth. It might feel awkward at first, but over time, it becomes your new normal. And as your words change, your life will follow. Now I'm curious, where are you tuning in from and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how these words of truth connect us all across the world. 15. Love as the highest prosperity frequency. Why love dissolves fear, worry, and greed. How loving service naturally brings increase. Emmet Fox, when you love what you do, supply must follow. Love is the highest and most powerful vibration in the universe. And when you understand it as a spiritual principle, you realize it is directly connected to prosperity. Emmet Fox often emphasized that fear, worry, and greed are mental states that block the natural flow of divine supply. Love, on the other hand, opens every channel. It dissolves resistance, clears the mind of selfishness, and aligns you with the abundance that is already present in God's infinite plan. Fox explained that most people approach prosperity from a place of fear. They fear not having enough, they worry about losing what they have, or they secretly feel guilt and shame about desiring more. But love is the exact opposite of fear. It is trust, expansion, and connection. When you are operating in love, you are no longer focused on scarcity or competition. Instead, you naturally move into a state of generosity, creativity, and faith that abundance will continue to flow. He often reminded his students that love is not just about personal relationships. It is a way of seeing the world. When you love your work, love the people you serve, and love the opportunities to create value, prosperity becomes an effortless byproduct. When you love what you do, Fox said, supply must follow. Why? Because love raises your energy and inspires you to give your best. And in a universe governed by spiritual law, what you give with genuine love always returns multiplied. Think about the difference between two people doing the same job. One sees it as a burden, something to endure just to earn a paycheck. The other does the same work, but approaches it with enthusiasm, care, and pride. The second person not only enjoys the process more, but inevitably attracts more recognition, more opportunities, and more financial reward. That's because love energizes your efforts. It infuses what you do with a magnetic quality that others can sense and respond to. Fox also pointed out that when you love others, you stop resenting their success. Instead of feeling envy or jealousy, you bless them and celebrate their good. This simple shift keeps your heart open and free from the negative emotions that block abundance. Resentment creates a mental wall between you and your own supply, but love removes that wall. When you sincerely wish others well, you align yourself with the universal truth that there is more than enough for everyone. Love also neutralizes greed. When you truly love life and the people in it, you don't hoard or grasp. You know that divine supply is endless and that giving does not diminish your own. Fox taught that when you give with love, whether it's your time, energy, resources, or even just a kind word, you set spiritual law in motion. That act of loving generosity opens a new channel for good to flow back to you, often in unexpected ways. He encouraged people to begin by infusing love into the simplest areas of life. Love your home. Love the objects you already have. Love your daily routines. Love the small moments and the people who cross your path. Even if your circumstances are not yet ideal, choosing to love them shifts your inner vibration. And since your outer life is always a mirror of your inner state, loving what is here and now paves the way for greater blessings to arrive. Fox's writings also suggest that love naturally calms the restless mind. When you're filled with fear about money, your thoughts become chaotic. You can't think clearly or make wise decisions. But when you choose love for God, for yourself, for others, you move into a place of peace and clarity. From that calm state, inspired ideas flow more easily, and you're able to recognize opportunities that you might have missed before. Another important aspect is loving yourself. Many people unknowingly block prosperity because they don't feel worthy of it. They carry guilt from past mistakes, low self-esteem, or the belief that wanting more is selfish. But Fox reminded us that you are a child of God, and abundance is your divine inheritance. When you begin to truly love and accept yourself as worthy of every good thing, you open the door for prosperity to enter. Practical ways to activate this love-based prosperity mindset include small daily practices. Start by blessing your work each morning. Say silently, "I love this work, and I pour my best into it today. It blesses others, and it blesses me." When you pay bills, instead of feeling annoyed or fearful, bless the money as it goes out. I send this with love, knowing more will come back multiplied. When you interact with others, silently bless them. I see the divine in you. May you be prospered and at peace. These simple acts may seem small, but they shift the energy around you and create an atmosphere where abundance thrives. Fox also emphasized loving service. When you approach life asking, "How can I serve?" instead of "What can I get?" you align with divine purpose. Service done with love creates value, and value always draws compensation. This doesn't mean you ignore your own needs. Rather, it means you understand that your prosperity is directly linked to how much genuine good you bring to the world. So, love is not just an emotion. It's a spiritual force. It heals fear, it expands your capacity to receive, and it magnetizes everything you need. When you begin to consciously practice love in your thoughts, words, and actions, you'll notice that not only do you feel richer inside, but the outer symbols of prosperity, money, opportunities, support, start to appear naturally. 16. Divine ideas bring divine results. How abundance often arrives as an inspired idea. Why prayer opens your mind to solutions and opportunities. Trusting divine timing when answers come in unexpected ways. Emmet Fox often reminded his students that abundance rarely falls from the sky in the form of money or material things. Instead, it often appears as a divine idea, an inspired thought, a fresh perspective, a creative solution, or an unexpected connection that leads to new opportunities. This is why he emphasized the power of prayer and quiet reflection. When you pray, you are not begging for something outside of you. You are opening your mind to the infinite intelligence of God, allowing higher ideas to reach your conscious awareness. Fox believed that every need has a spiritual solution already present in divine mind. If you need more money, better health, or greater harmony in your life, the answer exists as an idea in the unseen realm. Prayer is what lifts your thinking from fear and confusion to a place where you can receive that idea. He would often say, prayer changes you, and when you change, your outer circumstances must change as well. Think about the countless inventions, businesses, and movements that began with a single inspired thought. Someone had an idea, a way to serve others, solve a problem, or create something new, and that idea became the channel through which prosperity flowed. Fox encouraged people to never underestimate the power of even the smallest divine nudge. One simple thought could unlock the door to greater supply than you ever imagined. It's important to understand that these divine ideas do not come through force. They arrive when your mind is calm, open, and receptive. This is why Fox emphasized the importance of quiet time each day. A still mind is like fertile soil where the seeds of divine inspiration can take root. When your thoughts are racing with worry, or when you're clinging too tightly to how you think things should happen, you block the flow of new ideas. But when you relax and trust that God's wisdom is guiding you, you create space for the right answers to appear. Sometimes, divine ideas don't make sense at first. They may seem small, unrelated, or even impractical. But Fox taught that if an idea comes with a sense of peace and clarity, rather than fear or urgency, it is worth exploring. It may lead to an opportunity you didn't see before, or it may open a path that eventually leads to the abundance you were seeking. This is where trust in divine timing becomes essential. Fox would often remind people that God's timing is perfect. While we may want instant results, sometimes there are unseen factors being rearranged for your highest good. Rushing, forcing, or panicking can actually delay the process. He compared it to planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You simply trust that the right conditions will bring the harvest. In the same way, when you receive a divine idea, act on it faithfully, but without anxiety about how quickly the results will show. Prayer is the key to this process. Fox suggested simple, affirmative prayers that align you with divine supply. For example, you might say, God's ideas flow through me freely. I am open to inspired thoughts that bring blessings to myself and others. Or, I now receive the perfect divine idea that leads me to greater abundance, peace, and joy. These kinds of prayers don't beg or plead. They declare your readiness to receive what already exists in the infinite mind of God. Fox also taught that divine ideas are never selfish. A true God-inspired thought always includes a blessing for others. It's never about taking away from someone else or manipulating circumstances for personal gain. Instead, it creates value and harmony. When you act on a divine idea, you naturally uplift those around you. And as a result, the flow of abundance multiplies. It's also important to recognize that sometimes the divine idea is not about doing something, but about being something. You may be guided to forgive someone, to release an old resentment, or to let go of a limiting belief. These inner shifts may not look like a direct path to prosperity, but they clear the mental and emotional blocks that have been preventing it. As soon as you remove those blocks, opportunities that were always present suddenly become visible. Fox loved to share examples of people who received their supply through a simple idea after prayer. One person might have been struggling financially, prayed for guidance, and suddenly remembered someone they hadn't called in years, leading to a job offer. Another might have been overwhelmed with debt, but received the inspired thought to reorganize their business in a new way, leading to immediate success. These stories all pointed to the same truth. Abundance flows through the channel of inspired ideas. Divine ideas also often come through ordinary channels. A book you feel drawn to read, a conversation with a stranger, a message you overhear, or even a sudden moment of clarity while washing dishes. Any of these could carry the spark of an answer you've been seeking. This is why Fox encouraged staying alert and open, because God can speak to you in any moment. When you trust this process, you move out of the anxiety of how will it happen and into the faith that the right steps will be revealed one at a time. Divine timing is rarely about delay. It's about alignment. When you are ready to receive and willing to follow the guidance you're given, things unfold with an ease that feels almost miraculous. So, abundance isn't about chasing after external results. It begins with aligning your consciousness with divine wisdom and then acting on the ideas that naturally arise from that connection. Those ideas are the seeds that grow into visible prosperity. And the more you trust that God's ideas always lead to good, the more freely you will allow the process to work through you. 17. Breaking free from collective poverty beliefs. How society's fear-based programming affects you. Why you must mentally separate from the mass mind. Emmet Fox's advice on staying centered in truth. Emmet Fox often emphasized that much of our struggle with money and abundance doesn't originate solely from our personal thoughts, but from the collective beliefs of society. We are born into a world that has long been shaped by fear, limitation, and scarcity thinking. From childhood, we hear phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, or you have to work hard for every penny. These ideas sink into the subconscious, becoming part of our mental landscape before we even question whether they are true. Fox referred to this as the mass mind, the collective consciousness of humanity that has been conditioned to accept lack as a natural part of life. But he reminded us that the mass mind is not rooted in divine truth, it is rooted in fear. Poverty, he said, is not a condition of God's kingdom, but a product of mistaken beliefs passed down through generations. To experience true prosperity, you must mentally step away from the noise of society and return to the spiritual truth that supply is infinite and always available. Think for a moment about how society reinforces poverty thinking. News cycles constantly highlight economic downturns, recessions, and financial crises, making people feel insecure about their future. Conversations about money often revolve around how little there is, how hard it is to come by, or how unfair the system is. Even entertainment subtly glorifies the struggle, creating an emotional association between hardship and real life. When you absorb these messages without awareness, you unconsciously align your thinking with lack rather than abundance. Fox warned against allowing this collective fear to dominate your mind. He explained that truth operates individually, meaning you are not bound by the beliefs of the crowd unless you accept them. He would say, you are governed by your own inner thought, not by what the world thinks, unless you agree with it. This is why he advised turning away from fear-based conversation, excessive media consumption, and environments that feed anxiety about supply. Breaking free from collective poverty beliefs requires conscious effort. The first step is awareness, recognizing that much of what you've been taught about money and prosperity is not spiritual truth, but human conditioning. Once you see that lack is a mental construct, you can begin replacing those inherited beliefs with affirmations of abundance. Fox recommended repeating statements like, God is my unfailing supply. I am not dependent on external conditions. I am governed by divine law, not by mass thought. This mental separation doesn't mean ignoring the realities of the world. It means refusing to accept them as ultimate truth. You can acknowledge that economic challenges exist, but you don't have to internalize them as your personal destiny. You stay centered in the knowing that God's supply is infinite and cannot be limited by worldly appearances. This inner stance creates a kind of spiritual immunity against the fear that grips others. Fox also encouraged surrounding yourself with uplifting influences, people who believe in possibilities rather than limitations, books and teachings that remind you of divine law, and environments that inspire faith instead of worry. By consciously choosing what you expose your mind to, you gradually weaken the hold of the mass mind. Another powerful tool Fox suggested was prayer for clarity and protection from collective fear. You might affirm, I am one with God's infinite wisdom. I am not subject to the world's confusion or fear. Divine truth governs my life, and only good can come to me. Prayers like these create a mental shield, keeping you aligned with spiritual reality even when the external world is filled with doubt. It's also important to remember that collective beliefs can subtly influence your actions. For example, if you unconsciously accept that money is scarce, you may hesitate to invest in yourself, avoid taking opportunities that seem too good to be true, or settle for less than you're capable of. By shifting your inner agreement, you naturally begin to make different choices that reflect abundance rather than limitation. Fox would often use the metaphor of tuning a radio. If you're tuned to a station broadcasting fear and lack, that's the signal you'll hear all day long. But if you change the frequency, you receive an entirely different message. In the same way, the mass mind broadcasts one channel, scarcity, fear, limitation, but you have the power to tune into divine truth, which always broadcasts abundance, peace, and possibility. This doesn't mean you'll never encounter collective fear again. It simply means you will recognize it for what it is, a temporary illusion created by human thought, not a permanent decree from God. When you learn to stand apart from the mass mind, you become a light to others. Your calm presence reminds people that they too are not bound by the world's fear, but can rise above it. Fox believed that when more individuals reject the poverty thinking of the mass mind, the collective consciousness itself begins to shift. In other words, your personal decision to align with abundance contributes to healing the larger world. One person choosing faith over fear creates a ripple effect. So, breaking free from collective poverty beliefs is both a personal and spiritual responsibility. It is about choosing daily to align with God's infinite truth rather than society's fear-based illusions. It is about guarding your mind, affirming your divine supply, and living from a place of inner certainty no matter what the world says. 18. Living beyond fear of the future. Why fear of loss attracts loss. How to stay peaceful in times of uncertainty. Emmet Fox's prayer method for releasing fear about money. Fear of the future is one of the strongest forces that blocks abundance. When a mind constantly anticipates loss, uncertainty, or failure, it creates a vibration that attracts exactly those experiences. Emmet Fox taught that fear is a misuse of imagination. It is picturing what you do not want and energizing it with emotion. He would remind us that fear has no real power in itself. It is only the absence of faith. But when you dwell on it, fear grows into a mental atmosphere that clouds your perception and limits the flow of divine supply. When people fear the future, they often start making decisions from a place of desperation instead of clarity. They cling tightly to what they have, hoard resources, and focus on the worst-case scenarios. In doing so, they block the natural circulation of good. Fox explained that God's supply cannot stop flowing, but you can close yourself off to it through mental tension and anxiety. Fear becomes like a wall that shuts out the good that is already prepared for you. He would say, you cannot be in fear and faith at the same time. One will always displace the other. This means the key to living beyond fear is not fighting it, but replacing it with trust in the divine order of life. When you trust that God is your unfailing source, no matter how unstable the outer world may seem, you begin to experience peace even in times of uncertainty. Remaining peaceful doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending difficulties don't exist. It means recognizing that challenges are temporary appearances, while God's law of abundance is eternal. For example, even in times of economic downturn or personal setbacks, divine ideas, opportunities, and resources still exist. When your mind is calm and centered, you're able to see those opportunities and act on them. But when you're consumed by fear, you miss them entirely. Fox often recommended a simple but powerful prayer to release fear about money and the future. He suggested affirming silently, God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. There is no fear in God, and I am one with God. Repeating this throughout the day shifts the focus from limitation to infinite support. Over time, the subconscious begins to accept this truth, dissolving the anxious thoughts that create resistance. Another practice he emphasized was visualization of peace. Instead of replaying scenarios of loss in your mind, imagine yourself calm, supported, and provided for. Picture your needs being met in ways beyond your current understanding. By feeding the mind with images of security and fulfillment, you naturally move away from the habit of fear-based thinking. Living beyond fear of the future also involves a change in perspective. Ask yourself, how many times in the past did I fear something that never actually happened? Most people realize that much of their worry was wasted energy. Fox taught that fear is a lie because it projects an outcome that has not even occurred, while ignoring the ever-present power of God to provide solutions. The moment you decide to trust, you step into a different stream of possibilities. He also highlighted the importance of gratitude as an antidote to fear. When you focus on what is working, what you already have, and the ways life has supported you so far, fear loses its grip. Gratitude anchors you in the present moment, which is the only place where divine supply can truly be experienced. It is also helpful to limit exposure to external influences that feed fear. News cycles, negative conversations, and collective panic amplify the sense of insecurity. Fox urged people to mentally withdraw from the mass mind of fear and center themselves in spiritual truth instead. You cannot control the outer world, but you can choose what you allow to enter your consciousness. Above all, living beyond fear of the future is about remembering your true source. Jobs, investments, or markets may change, but God as the infinite source of supply does not. When you anchor your trust there, the fear of losing something external fades. You realize that even if one door closes, another, often better, door will open. This kind of faith-based living doesn't just bring inner peace, it also changes your results. When you are calm, you think more clearly, make wiser decisions, and recognize opportunities that panic would have blinded you to. You attract better circumstances because your inner state aligns with abundance instead of lack. Fox's teachings make it clear that fear of the future is not a divine truth, but a mental habit. And like any habit, it can be changed. With prayer, affirmations, and conscious redirection of thought, you gradually dissolve the fear that has been holding back your good. 19. Prosperity beyond money. Understanding true abundance includes health, peace, and happiness. Why money alone is not prosperity. How full life naturally attracts material support. Prosperity, in its truest sense, goes far beyond the limits of money. Emmet Fox emphasized that real abundance is a state of wholeness, a complete well-being that encompasses health, peace of mind, harmonious relationships, and inner joy. Money is simply one expression of prosperity, but it is not the entirety of it. You can have financial wealth yet still feel empty, anxious, or disconnected. True prosperity is when every area of life reflects balance, fulfillment, and divine support. When we think of prosperity only as money, we reduce it to a narrow concept, often chasing numbers while neglecting the deeper needs of the soul. Fox often pointed out that someone could have plenty of material possessions, yet still live in poverty if they lack peace, love, and a sense of purpose. On the other hand, someone who feels deeply connected to God, lives with joy, and maintains gratitude for life is already rich, even before material wealth shows up. He said that the divine law of abundance expresses itself through all forms of good. Look at nature as an example. The trees do not produce just one leaf, but countless leaves. The oceans are vast beyond measure. The stars fill the sky in infinite numbers. This same creative energy is what you are part of, and it is not limited to money. It includes vibrant health, satisfying work, spiritual growth, meaningful friendships, and the inner peace that cannot be bought. Money itself becomes more meaningful when it supports a full life rather than trying to replace what is missing. Think of someone who uses wealth to experience beauty, to help others, to enjoy more time with family, or to support causes that uplift the world. In that case, money is serving its rightful place as a tool, not the ultimate goal. But when money becomes the sole focus, it often brings worry, competition, and fear of losing it. Fox reminded us that when you are aligned with the fullness of life, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, the material support you need will follow naturally. This is why he encouraged people to first cultivate inner prosperity. Work on your peace of mind. Heal old emotional wounds. Strengthen your faith. Live with integrity. When you feel abundant inside, your outer conditions begin to mirror that state. You may notice new opportunities arriving, better health improving, and relationships becoming more harmonious. From this place, money flows more easily because it is no longer coming from desperation or lack, but from a balanced, open state of being. Fox also explained that happiness and gratitude are powerful magnets for all good, including material wealth. When you're grateful for your current blessings, no matter how small, they multiply. When you take time to appreciate your health, the breath in your body, the beauty around you, you are aligning yourself with the frequency of abundance. On the other hand, constant complaints, comparisons, or resentment keep you trapped in a state of perceived lack. Another important point he made was about health as an essential part of prosperity. You cannot enjoy any amount of wealth if your body is weak or your mind is overwhelmed with stress. True prosperity means having the vitality to enjoy life. That's why nurturing your body with care, rest, and positive thoughts is just as important as improving your finances. The same spiritual principles that attract money, gratitude, faith, love, and right thinking also promote physical well-being. Peace is also a key aspect of abundance. A person who is constantly worried about the future, even if they have money, is not truly prosperous. Fox taught that peace of mind comes from trust in divine order. When you know that God is the source of all your good, you stop living in fear of losing it. This deep sense of security allows you to make better decisions, enjoy what you have, and remain calm no matter what outer circumstances look like. Relationships are another reflection of true abundance. Loving, supportive connections enrich life in ways that money never could. Fox believed that when you radiate love and kindness, you naturally attract the right people into your life. Harmony in relationships creates an environment where prosperity can flourish. Without love and connection, even great financial wealth feels empty. When you shift your understanding of prosperity to include all these dimensions, health, peace, love, happiness, purpose, you start to see money differently. It becomes a companion, not a master. It becomes easier to attract because it is flowing into a life already filled with meaning. You stop chasing it and instead allow it to serve you as you serve your higher purpose. So, the real key to prosperity beyond money is living fully. Wake up each day seeking not just financial gain, but personal growth, gratitude, kindness, and joy. Do what you love, nurture your well-being, cherish your relationships, and stay connected to the divine source within you. When your life is rich in these ways, the material supply you need will come effortlessly as part of the whole. 20. Making abundance a permanent state. How to turn prosperity practices into a lifestyle. The daily habits that sustain wealth consciousness. Why true abundance grows endlessly when nurtured. Abundance is not meant to be a temporary experience that comes and goes with the ups and downs of life. It is designed to be a permanent state of being. Emmet Fox taught that true prosperity isn't about a single act of faith or a short-term burst of positive thinking. It is about living in continuous harmony with spiritual law. Just as you don't breathe only once and expect it to sustain you for life, you cannot treat prosperity as a one-time effort. It becomes a way of life, a natural rhythm you maintain through your thoughts, feelings, actions, and connection to God. To make abundance permanent, you must first shift your identity. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who is trying to get prosperity, begin to see yourself as someone who already lives within the endless flow of divine supply. Fox emphasized that everything begins in the mind, and so does the feeling of being supported. When you believe abundance is your divine inheritance, you stop chasing and start receiving. This inner shift removes the anxiety that wealth might disappear and replaces it with trust that the source is constant and cannot run out. Daily habits are the bridge that turns spiritual truths into lived reality. One of the most powerful habits is starting and ending your day with gratitude. By acknowledging what is already good in your life, you are tuning yourself to recognize and attract even more. Fox often said, "You cannot receive more until you appreciate what you have." Gratitude anchors you in the present moment while opening your heart to greater blessings. Visualization is another habit that sustains abundance consciousness. Spend a few quiet minutes each day imagining yourself living in peace, health, freedom, and joy. Not just material wealth, but the full spectrum of prosperity. See yourself thriving in all areas and feel the emotions of already having it. The mind cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced, so this practice keeps your vibration aligned with plenty rather than lack. Equally important is the practice of circulation. Money and blessings are like energy. They must move. Fox warned that hoarding, clinging, or fearing loss cuts off the natural flow. To keep abundance circulating, give freely where you feel led, whether it's your time, resources, or a kindness. When you release with faith, you make room for more to flow in. This simple habit keeps your life open and receptive instead of closed and stagnant. Affirmations also help keep the mind steady in the truth of abundance. Simple phrases like, God is my infinite supply, and I am always provided for, or divine abundance flows to me and through me in endless ways, reprogram the subconscious and guard against the creeping influence of fear or doubt. Repetition is key because the old patterns of scarcity thinking may try to resurface. By consistently speaking words of truth, you reinforce the new mental foundation. Another daily practice Fox encouraged is taking inspired action. Abundance isn't just about thinking. It requires alignment with what you do. Each day, ask yourself, what step can I take today that expresses faith in divine supply? It might be starting a new project, reaching out to someone, or simply doing your current work with excellence and joy. Prosperity grows when you act in ways that honor your gifts and serve others. Maintaining inner peace is equally vital. Fear and worry choke the flow of abundance, while calm trust keeps it alive. Fox recommended turning to prayer or meditation whenever anxiety arises. By centering yourself in God, you remind yourself that the true source of your good cannot fail. This sense of peace allows you to handle life's changes without slipping back in a lack consciousness. Over time, these habits, gratitude, visualization, circulation, affirmations, inspired action, and inner peace, create a stable foundation where abundance is no longer something you're trying to manifest. It simply becomes who you are. Prosperity stops being an event and becomes a natural expression of your relationship with the infinite. When you live this way, you notice that abundance doesn't just sustain itself, it multiplies. True prosperity grows endlessly because it is rooted in divine law, and divine law is limitless. As you continue to nurture your wealth consciousness, you expand into greater levels of good, new opportunities, deeper fulfillment, richer relationships, and a stronger sense of purpose. So, making abundance a permanent state is not about luck or a special moment of alignment. It is about creating a lifestyle that reflects spiritual truth every single day. When you consistently think, feel, and act from the awareness that God is your unfailing supply, abundance becomes as natural as the rising of the sun. 21. Abundance as your divine destiny. Final reminder, prosperity is your spiritual inheritance. Why accepting abundance honors God's nature as infinite good. Living in alignment with the law of abundance every day. Abundance is not an accident, nor is it reserved for a chosen few. It is your divine destiny, your birthright as a child of an infinite, generous God. Emmet Fox emphasized that poverty is never part of God's plan. It is a human misconception, a false belief rooted in fear and separation. When you awaken to the truth that God is infinite supply, you begin to see that there is no spiritual virtue in lack, no glory in limitation. Prosperity is the natural expression of a life aligned with divine law. Accepting abundance is not about greed or selfishness. It is about honoring the very nature of God as infinite good. When you allow yourself to receive, you are acknowledging that God's blessings are endless and available. Fox once wrote that to deny your prosperity is, in a way, to deny the fullness of God's love. When you thrive in health, wealth, peace, and joy, you reflect the divine qualities you were created to express. You become a living testimony that God is truly an unfailing source of good. Living in alignment with the law of abundance each day doesn't require striving or forcing. It requires remembering that you are connected to the same intelligence that made the stars and the oceans. Remembering that lack is not real in the divine realm. Remembering that gratitude, love, and faith keep you tuned to the frequency of plenty. Every time you choose trust over fear, generosity over withholding, and praise over complaint, you step deeper into the life you were designed to live. This is the journey that takes you beyond manifesting things and into a permanent state of knowing. You and God are one, and in that oneness, you lack nothing. Abundance flows naturally because you're no longer resisting it with doubt or guilt. You live peacefully, joyfully, and expansively, knowing that more good is always unfolding. So as we close this series, let this be the truth you carry with you. Prosperity is your spiritual inheritance, and by accepting it, you glorify the limitless nature of God. Each day is an opportunity to align with this truth more deeply, to circulate blessings freely, and to allow abundance to touch every area of your life. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with one word that describes how you feel right now, whether it's peace, hope, joy, or gratitude. Your engagement helps this truth reach more hearts, and together, we create a ripple of prosperity for all. Are you ready to fully embrace your divine destiny of abundance? Let's walk in it, starting today.